record to the so-called cloud. Record to the Shalom. Good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 43rd year. In a few weeks, our 44th year. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2024, in the Gregorian calendar. And it is, since it's after nightfall, the onset of I can't read my mind, the 25th day of the 8th Israelite Hebrew month of Cheshvan in the Hebrew Israelite calendar, year 5785. Welcome to episode 29 of our monthly Root and Branch Association Roots, Nettles, and Sage. No, Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettle, and Sage. Research Fellowship Seminars. The Madam co-chairs of the Ancient Roots Mothering Seminar are, in alphabetical order, Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin of the Lower Galilee in the land of Israel, Mrs. Chava Dagan of the Northern Negev, here in the land of Israel, and Mrs. Gilla Weiss of Florida in the United States of God of Israel, bless America. Please support our work. All the links, their wonderful work, my work, all the links will be below to do that. And we thank the friends and colleagues of Chava and Gilla and Rivkah who have joined from, I see, the United States and Israel and perhaps other countries, but we'll find about that in a minute. So, Chava, Gila, and Rivkah, ladies, it's all yours. Looking forward, as always, to the program.
Thank you so much, Lowell Aryeh, a lion for our people, a lion of the times. And if you heard before we began recording, you will see what a lion looks like by listening to Lowell share his thoughts about our current situation in Israel and beyond. We are still having a war in Israel. This is year number 2 of the war. We've completed 1 full year, so we're now into the 2nd year. And it's getting tiresome. And there's other things that we want to talk about, we want to share. So please write to us and let us know about these things. But I'm just kind of finding that the war is so prevalent. It's something that's so important and so intrinsic to our lives that we can't really avoid the topic. And it's not only war in Israel, it's any kind of crisis situation that's ongoing. Today, we would like to talk about how to kind of create a healthy home, especially with children during times of crisis. So for us, it's the war, but it could be hurricanes, it could be bad weather, it could be, our daylight is dwindling away in the wintertime, and staying close to home has become necessary. It could be another epidemic, pandemic situation. Anything that can make going out of the house difficult. And certainly we don't want to feel that we're missing out on our lives. We don't want to feel that their children are missing out, that our children are missing out on their lives. And the years are passing between COVID and then this war. Many years in my children's lives have passed, and perhaps in yours as well. So welcome. What do we do? So I want to begin by saying that I have kids of all different ages, from adult children. I have an adult child who isn't living at home, who's almost 20, and my youngest just turned 7. So everyone's dealing with these situations in different ways as per their abilities and their abilities to understand, their abilities to talk about what's going on, understand what's going on. And I will say that while my older children seem to be pretty even keeled with everything that's happening, the younger children are actually not doing so well. They're very afraid. They don't want to leave the mamad, the safe room, the bomb shelter. Um, and going away, which is something we talk about all the time, getting out in nature, getting out of the parks. But sometimes when the war situation is very unpredictable and we're not sure when the next siren is going to happen or what's going on, it can be difficult to get out, especially for my younger kids who want to make sure they have a safe area to go to anywhere we go. Besides the fact that much of the north of the country where we live has been shut down. So, typical parks and places that we would go to, things that activities that we've loved doing for years as a family, be it going to the beach or going to national parks, these places are closed down and we simply can't get there anymore. So, what can we do at home to kind of, keep the season jolly and happy? And we have winter holidays coming up. And what can we do to make the situation a bit happier for ourselves and our children, and kind of keep us engaged in meaningful things and meaningful connection in the home? So, let me throw it over to Chava, perhaps, and we can start chatting about it.
So, besides the house having board games and card games, chess and checkers and puzzles, all of these things, we actually have I guess a closet, you would call it shelves, inside the mamad with all of these things. So we can pull them out anytime that we need to play inside the house, but for those emergencies when we are actually not leaving the mamad, as they're already there. We don't have to think, oh my gosh, we're in here, we're stuck. What do we do? They're right there on the shelves and easy to pull down. The kids know exactly where they are because they're the ones who put them away. And we just grab them and start. It doesn't even matter with what. The card games are always the easiest. We've got lots and lots. My kids love chess. And puzzles, puzzles, puzzles. We are huge on puzzles. I just love puzzles. They're so able to get your mind focused. And so even when, there's booming and there's whatever going on outside, the puzzles really keep everyone very focused on what's happening on the table and really interactive and helping each other find the different pieces and figure out the whole thing. We're just really big on puzzles. So that's what we do. We have a big closet inside the mamad and everything is there and everything's ready right at our reach.
So we talked about this when the war first started, about kind of how to stock your safe area. But over a year into the war, I'm realizing like everyone's bored with that stuff. Or the pieces have been lost to games, or the kinetic sand has been lost, or whatever. Or it's the same thing over and over. So it's time to restock. And chess is great. The cards are great. I just got a new clue, a Harry Potter clue for the kids. There's all sorts of different Dobble, sets. Um, my son does magic tricks, which is so fun because, in stressful moments, kind of like, why don't you grab your cards and let's do some magic tricks? And it kind of brings back the sense of wonder and, you know, like beauty and focus while there's sirens and there's booms and there's, all sorts of things happening. And I guess maybe also at this time mentioning the animals, even though I was going to kind of get to that later, but I was thinking about the animals that, I remember sitting in the mamad and watching the cats kind of run around in circles outside during these sirens and these booms. And the kids are like, we want to go get the cats. And I'm like, we can't leave the room right now. We've got to wait till this siren is over. They're going to find a safe place. And as soon as it's over, we can go and we can bring the cats in. So we have a bunch of feral cats. I've talked about them before, that everyone who lives in Israel has a bunch of feral cats, whether they like it or not. Are they in their yard or are they around the corner? Who knows? But they're nearby, I guarantee you. So we've been doing some more work with the animals as well. And I'll bounce it back to Chava about this, but kind of dealing with their stress levels. So we were talking about how the animals, we need to pet the animals as emotional support animals, almost probably is the same amount as they need to be petted and comforted and cared for because they're nervous and they're upset. And we've seen our feral cats actually calm down so much with that constant interaction, they know that after kind of a scary thing, we're going to come and pet them and give them a treat, and everything's going to be okay. So maybe Chava, you can talk about your animals. The chickens also. We do that with the chickens too. Go out and pet them.
Yeah, that's just it's been a big boost for I think just emotionally when you're helping someone else or caring for someone else, knowing that they are also in their own way traumatized, it kind of takes the focus off of you and it helps the kids to actually care for something and know that they have a responsibility to calm these animals down. And right when the war started, everyone, we've talked about this, they abandoned this whole area and we were the only ones left. And they abandoned their animals too, which whatever. But they all showed up at our house because we were the only humans here. They were literally looking for connection. They were shaking and trembling, and their eyes are. They were so traumatized, these poor cats and dogs and everything else that showed up here. And they were just looking for someone to hold them and give them a little bit of comfort. And so we did. And it helped the kids and it really helped the animals.
And animal chores as well. So, at some point we were kind of like, everyone was afraid to spend much time outside because it was always unpredictable when the next boom or siren was going to happen. And everyone wanted to kind of stay close to home. And in the meanwhile, the chicken coop is getting pretty nasty. Like they need fresh straw. They need, we would get out to feed them, obviously, and give them water, but get, cutting weeds for, to line their nesting boxes and things like that, that takes more time. So it was really a family activity, whereas normally it might be one or two people would go. It's like we all go together. Let's do this job faster that way, and we can spend some time just really close. And then we did also drills, practice runs, where I would say, okay, from where we're tending to the chickens, let's stop and we'll pretend a siren happens and I'm going to count and we'll see how fast we can get from the chicken coop to the safe room. And the kids saw that they could get there in 10 seconds. And where we live, we have a minute. So we had 50 seconds to spare, or say 45 seconds, to spare, with plenty of time. So that was helpful. And we could get the chickens some fresh straw. Gilla. You're muted.
Hear me now? So one of the things that you mentioned, and first of all, I am in the US, so we are not in a mamad. I'm in Florida. We do get occasional storms, hurricanes, where, we might need to stay indoors for a few hours to a day. Sometimes it's overnight. But you mentioned how, we all love going out to parks, the kids. It's part of the routine. It's part of life, nature, especially at this change of seasons, and how they're missing out on this when you have to stay indoors or in the mamad. And while you can have games and you have so many amazing ideas, at the same time, let's bring nature indoors to the kids. There are so many simple activities that can really be fun to do and help us and our kids to reconnect with nature when we can't make it to that trail or to the park or, to the forest or anywhere we would have gone, even just to, a wild area close to our home. So one of the things that most young kids like doing is, my son made these yesterday. Simple seashells, nothing fancy, a simple seashell. Most kids and adults love collecting shells at any beach, anywhere in the world. And he used simple markers. He did different colors and rocks, little stones, bigger stones, rocks, painting. He wrote his name and he just colored the back with a marker. But older kids can actually paint. They can paint a butterfly, they can draw a ladybird. There are so many interesting, fun activities and ideas for each age level. And that will get them using their hands, using their creativity, connecting with something natural. At the same time, they could be listening to some calming music or any music that they like. And at this time of year, any time of year is good for gift giving. So my son has 2 tutors. He, joins a homeschool class. So he actually made these that he's going to wrap to give to his teachers, or, it's teacher gift day, or it's, whatever it is. So that's another thing to help motivate them. Like, would you like to give this as a gift? And that's why he chose purple and pink, and, with someone in mind. Other things that we can do to bring nature indoors, is leaves. So fall time is, we all think of leaves, we think of fall. But any time of year, trace the leaves, press them, make a collage, or glue leaves on and draw a tree with the rest. And it can be a collective activity, or each one can do their own. Planting can be so easy indoors. You just need a little soil and little mini planters. And they can plant seeds, make a label, the date, what seed, put their own name on it so that they'll know which is theirs, and watch its progress. Another thing is, we did this during COVID, and that is to take the leftovers, the scraps, whatever doesn't go in the compost. It can be the end of a lettuce, the end of celery. You want to usually make sure it's non-GMO. But try with anything that you got from the store. You cut up your lettuce, you're done, put it in a little water, in a little jar. Same thing with the ends of lettuce, plenty of vegetables. Put it on the windowsill or on the shelf and watch it get roots, or just grow. Keep it fresh. If you have leftover dill or mint, they often reroot, or they're just going to be kept fresh. So those are activities to bring nature indoors, which doesn't substitute for going outside, but it helps us to connect to nature, which is so lacking when we're closed up indoors.
Yeah, Chava and I were discussing, it's citrus season in Israel. And so this is when we save the orange peels, and it's really easy. You peel an orange and you eat the orange, or you use the juice and you take the peel, and I just cut it into strips. You want to get them into small pieces before it dries, because when they dry, they're going to be rock hard. So I just cut the orange peels into strips and then cut them again across, and get these little squares of orange peels, and I let them sit out and dry. And that's something you can do in the house, in the bomb shelter. It brings in the season, it brings in those wonderful citrus smells. And then making things that make the house smell kind of wintry, like chai tea or yogi tea, using those peels, the citrus peels. So particularly orange peel and clove and ginger and cinnamon and nutmeg and black pepper, and just making some nice wintry teas that also stave off colds and flu. Sprouting is another thing to add to that. And then when Gilla brought up the painting and drawing, that was also on my list. That's kind of a lifesaver. The girls spent many a days kind of with a watercolor paint set on the floor, and just, paper after paper. I would get big reams of paper and just stack it up, and they would paint one after the other and have tons of pictures. Pro tip: if you don't want to have 80,000 pictures hanging on your fridge or whatever, you can let the kids know that you'll take a picture of it and then throw it away, but you'll have the picture of what they've done, because those works of art can add up pretty quickly. Chava, do you have other things to add in the food or drawing, painting area?
My kids just when they draw all these pictures that you're talking about, we also have thousands and thousands. Each one, we have like a classer folder with a binder, you would call it. And all those pictures go in there. So we have them from when they were really little all the way up until today, and then they get to look through them again. I understand the telephone thing, but I just can't save all those things on my phone. So it's very cute, and they date them, and that's another thing. We just take down these old pictures and paintings of theirs and old photo albums and sit on the floor and look at me when I was in high school and, the kids when they were little. That will take hours because then the question, what were you doing here? Who's that guy? Why do you look like that? Um, yeah, that's a fun one.
Gathering pictures is that's so important because that's also, I don't think we do that enough nowadays. And I remember my grandmother sitting with me and she would write the names and dates of everyone in the picture on the back and say, oh, this was my great aunt and this was my so-and-so. And I would have never known who was who.
Exactly. Yep. And baking. As soon as the temperature drops just a little, when it's hot and it's summer, I can't even think spending more than I'm actually supposed to cook in the kitchen. But once the temperature drops just a little bit, all of a sudden everything starts. I want to smell this and I want to try that, and all the orange pumpkin and pumpkin pie and putting pumpkin and sweet potato in every single thing, and the spices and the baking. The kids love to just start putting things together, like different flours and different nuts and dried fruits and whatever, and make muffins, or we were talking about granola before. The baking starts up, and that will keep people in the kitchen for hours and hours and hours, and it's so much fun. And then, of course, they have to clean up, so that's another long time. But that produces so many memories. We'll just laugh and taste this and be like, why did you do that combination? That's weird, but someone always likes it. Yeah, so the baking starts up.
Yeah, we do regular baking days. It used to be once a week, but when things are particularly hairy and we can't go out, I've sometimes done bread baking daily, and not just your daily bread. I mean, a new wacky bread every day of the week. So orange, cardamom one day and milk oatmeal, ginger the next day or whatever it is, and just find the wackiest and have the kids. I have them search it online, like see what kind of wacky bread thing we can try today. And then, you can freeze them and you can use them for challah. Even if they're wacky flavors, they're still challah, provided that you made them with, according to your rules for what is challah or what you take challah from. So we did today. Today we had a baking day. It takes longer for bread to rise in the wintertime. But we had a baking day today. So we have challah dough waiting for me when I'm done with this call to go out with the kids and do some more. And my son baked new chocolate chip cookies. He has this great recipe everyone loves, and he decided to try it with browned butter. So he browned his butter for the first time and added pumpkin pie spices to the cookies, and they're phenomenal. And just what Chava was saying and Gilla was saying about trying these new things, and they might turn out and they might not, but having fun with that and getting everyone in the kitchen. Today I was making lunch with my sons and we're all peeling vegetables together and having conversations. Another thing I would say with food is, well, two things. One is the science experiments food, and one is the herbs. So this is a good time for us to dry herbs. So a lot of times, and you probably will need to prune your herbs if you have some growing wild in your garden around this season, because we're getting rain. So they start to get wild and you can really trim them back. So whenever we trim our lemon verbena, I have the kids call a neighbor who loves the lemon verbena and, just invite him over and say, we just trimmed today, come and get some. And I send them out for rosemary and other things. And we just stick bunches in a vase with no water and let them dry in the vase. It's not your traditional bundling them, hanging them upside down, whatever, but they look pretty as they're drying. As long as you have a way to kind of catch the falling rosemary needles or whatever when they dry, but it kind of looks pretty and lends a smell, and it's a different way of drying things that can bring some more enjoyment. and then the food as science projects. So we are all homeschooling moms. I was just with my two eldest children in London, where we got to try clotted cream for the first time. And it was interesting because one of the projects with my kids was making butter. So if you don't know how to make butter, you get whipping cream and you whip it just as if you were whipping it for cream. And it'll whip into whipped cream, and then you'll keep whipping it, and it'll start to look like butter. And that's clotted cream. And so you have clotted cream there. And then if you keep whipping, all the water starts to come out, which is buttermilk. Okay. And all the water starts to come out. And then what's left is kind of this lump that you can rinse and squeeze out. And that lump is butter. You can add some salt to it, or, whatever you want. So that type of science experiment, I just thought of it because I have recently done this with my kids. It's like, what can we do with cream? If we whip it this amount, it's like this. And a taste testing thing, which the kids love, like we'll taste the cream, we'll taste the clotted cream, we'll taste the butter, that stuff can be really, really fun. Any more?
Something else that I wanted to mention is aromatherapy, since we're talking about herbs. If you're stuck in the house, whether your house is closed and even boarded up for a hurricane, it can get pretty stuffy. And I imagine that a whole family in a mamad can get pretty stuffy as well. So I would suggest diffusing some essential oil, any way that you diffuse, any diffuser you have, just for a little while, 10, 15 minutes max. You don't want to leave it on, but that will just freshen the air a little. And depending on the oils you choose, it can lighten the mood as well. If you're stuck indoors or in a room, just having, okay, we're going to do 10-minute or 15-minute massage. Everybody, you can use carrier oils with essential oils in it, and everybody do each other's shoulders. Okay, everybody turn around, do shoulders, or foot massage. Everybody 5 minutes, turn around. You can add music to that. It can be massage, musical chairs, or any way that your family would appreciate. The other thing is soap making. Now, I mentioned that, and I see Chava's face. So Chava, I don't make soap. Chava makes soap from scratch, and she involves her kids. I'm talking about the hack, urban way of making soap when you're stuck in home, and you can get these. When you get crafts for your kids, whether they homeschool or not, a lot of people in the US will do this type of craft, like now when they come to the end of the year, all the smells, the holiday seasons, and things like that. You can buy a basic glycerine-based, soap mix or other base soap mix. And you can buy simple molds, any type of molds, and have the kids have a few bowls. The kids can mix. They can mix their favorite smelling essential oil or baking essence like lemon or vanilla in the glycerin. They can also crush up a cinnamon stick. They can use dried herbs. So whatever dried herbs you have, sage, rosemary, lavender, they can mix those in, oatmeal, and pour it into the mold. And the kids absolutely love that, because after it sets, they have a beautiful, depending what your idea of beauty is, but they have their own creation. It smells good, and it's usable. They can use their own soap, or again, they can wrap this and give it as a gift. And it's all done at a table or on the floor or anywhere. You just need to set up a few things beforehand. And it's relatively simple. And I have a bunch of I only have one homeschooler right now, but when my sons homeschooled, they actually loved making soap. They didn't love all the crafts and herbal craft or, aromatherapy craft, but they loved making soap, and they would add all kinds of things, and they would actually use the soaps. So that's kind of where I feel it's a process oriented, but there's also an end result, and they get to use it, and you can do it when you're stuck indoors. Yeah.
Speaking of boys. So yeah, there are some things that they are very willing to do, and there are some things that they're like, no. So one thing that has always worked with them, and it's portable and stowable and usable in the end, is clay. Um, we make pottery, and it doesn't have to be we happen to have one, but that's outside. When you can't go outside and can't use a spinning wheel, um, just molding clay into cups and plates and bowls and sculptures, and they love it because they get really dirty and it's easy to wash off. And then they put their little creations on the side to dry, and they can paint it and, come up with all kinds of variations on their creativity. That's always been a fun one. One more thing, is I don't know if you have heard of pocket warmers. This is something that's so simple, and we're talking about herbs, so this is a awesome little thing. Super simple. You just take like this big, so it fits in your pocket, piece of material, two pieces, so one in front and one in back. Sew them together all the way around. You can just do hand stitching. It doesn't require any knowledge of just in and out. And you leave a little spot so that you can put flax seeds, whole flax seeds, and flower petals, whatever smells nice to you, and dump it in there and then sew it up. And that's it. That can be warmed and it will stay warm. Those flax seeds heat up really nice. And you can put it in your pockets, in your sock, in your blankets when you go to sleep, in your lap when you're just sitting. In the winter, it's really nice, and it smells nice because of the flower petals. But so simple, and you can, like Gilla was saying, give them for gifts. That one's always worked, because if I give my kids like a reason to do something, like, okay, Hanukkah's coming up, so we got to get stuff ready for people. And then they're like, oh, right, okay, they're very project oriented. So we'll sit down and just whip out, 10 or 20 of those.
Do you have a good method for people who don't use microwaves for warming those things quickly?
So we have a fireplace. Anything that's warm, you put it next to it, not in the oven or something like that. But you can even turn off, like heat up an oven. When it gets down to a certain temperature, turn it off and then stick that in there just for, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then take it out and it's nice and warm. Or a radiator, put it next to a radiator. I put it right next to the fireplace, like close to on a brick or something that will keep it nice and warm.
I've used hot water bottles as well and just set it on top. And then you have a hot water bottle to use as well, which is nice. Gila, you're saying something, but you're muted.
I keep muting myself and then forget. So I don't have a microwave. I haven't had in a while. And I miss it for one reason, and that is to heat up all those homemade rice socks and, warm pack things. Every time I want to warm it up, I'm like, I wish I had a microwave for this. However, I've learned that the hot water urn that we use for Shabbat, just put it on top. Heat it up, put it on top. It warms up amazingly. And it can act as insulation to keep the hot water in the urn hotter as well. The other thing is, if you have a slow cooker, I have used that as well. Now, it can get kind of hot, but it's not an oven, and you can watch it. And I don't put it in the ceramic. I just put it straight on the bottom. Sometimes I use a lot of felted wool for these type of things, so they're a little more resistant to burning quickly, as if you put something. You can also use something damp, but I use those two and find that they work really well. You keep your eye on it in the slow cooker, but you put it on low, of course, not hot, and it just heats up nicely. I would maybe even just cover the top with a little wool blanket, or put the cover on, but not fully put it on, and keep an eye on it. And I find they warm up really nicely.
You could probably use those kumkums, the electric kumkum that heats up so fast too, and have it sit on if it's glass or something.
Yes.
Okay, so like I said, it's year 2 of the war. So getting creative and doing new things is really the name of the game right now. So I've decided that we're gonna give my kids a little bit of culture. So we've done 2 tracks with this. One is classical music. I have some kids that are really into that, and it's like, let's hear classical music. Let's sample different things. This is called this. This is written by this person. You know, you can even go more into it and teach them devices for memorizing the names of each piece. Or ways to recall it later. It's nice to know, because if you really like this classical song, you want to hear it again, you want to know the name of it so you can find it again. So that's important. And the second track we're using is Broadway musicals. So this was my former life as a professional actress and theater director. And I'm really enjoying pulling out these Broadway musicals and exploring new Broadway musicals with my kids. And, they're not always age appropriate for all people. Sometimes it can get a little hairy, a little difficult. But finding, put a little research into it first to make sure that this is age appropriate and whatever. Have a listen yourself first if you can. I privately will kind of go off when I have some quiet time. I'll listen to a new show I've never heard before first. So I know, okay, everything's good except this one song. We're going to skip this song or whatever it is, and then share it with the kids. And that's really cool. That's opened up a lot of interesting conversations that we hadn't had before. And particularly in Israel, being able to watch Broadway musicals. Broadway musicals are fairly new to Israel. The whole genre of musical theater was really looked down upon in Israel up until recently. And I just learned this because when I was still working 20 years ago, it was still pretty looked down on. Musicals were seen as like something for the kids, like the festival shows that would always happen on Hanukkah. And, it was just something childish and for kids and not really the art form that it is. So, the opportunities for exposure to this type of tarbut, to this type of culture in Israel, are very small. And our kids aren't going to learn about it unless we teach them. So that's been really, really fun. I think also maybe we should talk about the tea station here, Chava, if you want to talk about that.
I was just looking at that. Yep, I went to my tea station just before the show, and I made my carob and mushroom drink that we did at the Ari conference a couple years ago. It was so good, and since then it's stayed in so many people's memories, including my own. So as soon as the winter comes, we have the whole stack. We have, each canister has whatever in it. And then there's herbal tea bags and herbal things that I've harvested myself. And we just have the hot water, whatever you call it, going all the time, and just refill it as it empties out. And that one has been really nice. It's very close to the mamad. I didn't put it in because, that ship has flown for us. The mamad is there, but we're so sick of it. So it's close to it in case we ever needed it. We could move it right in. But yeah, that one's been really fun. And again, they come up with creations. They come up with their own taste. They come up with their own inventions, having everyone try it. And they get their nutrition, without even knowing it. They think it's just a big fun game.
The medicinal mushrooms, a lot of people, my kids included, would make fun of that at first because, there's the psychedelic mushrooms. And no, medicinal mushrooms are not psychedelic mushrooms. That's a different type of mushroom. We have the food mushrooms that are really nutritious and they taste really good and they have lots of earthy flavors. And then we have the medicinal mushrooms, which may have some overlap, but sometimes their flavors are really an acquired taste. And so they'd be taken more medicinally than as a food herb, but they have wonderful healing properties. In fact, that's one of our go-tos, especially in the wintertime. If someone's feeling sick and coming down with something, we take medicinal mushrooms, every few hours and it just knocks it out, whatever we've got going. And as Chava mentioned, it blends. Medicinal mushrooms have maybe an acquired flavor, but they blend really, really nicely with chocolate and carob. And so Gilla and Chava, had this amazing brainchild for Ancient Roots Israel to have hot cocoa on the night that we had a harp player and a family band playing all these amazing kind of Indian and Eastern musical instruments, and everyone had these medicinal mushroom hot chocolates. It's really easy. You just take maybe fourth a teaspoon of your medicinal mushrooms, depending on what you've got there, and then what you would use for a normal cup of hot cocoa or a hot carob, and just kind of spoon those in. You can add some honey. You can use sugar if you want to use sugar, whatever you want to use to sweeten it. Pour over some hot water, add a little milk, or you can use warm milk, straight into it, give it a stir, and you're done. And it's healthy and delicious. And my kids, they'll happily eat it with a marshmallow. We get those marshmallows and they tear them into little tiny mini marshmallows, just one, but it'll fill up the whole cup if you tear it into little pieces. So that's, yeah. And the tea station we also used to have in the Mamad, we don't have it there anymore. And I need to kind of reset it back up. But you can, we used to have tea bags to make your own tea. You could have medicinal mushrooms. You could have chocolate, like a cocoa powder or a carob powder, or even a chocolate mix powder, if that's what you're into. You could even have a candy bar. So what we were doing sometimes is break off a square of a chocolate bar and put that in, with some chai tea or something, and have like a chocolate chai and just pour the hot water over it, and that square of the chocolate bar melts, and it already has a little sweetener in it because it's a chocolate bar, but it's not like it's one square of chocolate. So having some marshmallows there, and also for family movie nights. So again, I feel like we're kind of reiterating what we talked about over a year ago when the war started, but Chava was talking about watching these old movies with her kids, and old television shows, the I Love Lucy's and all of this stuff that's pretty wholesome, good, clean fun nowadays. And we love making a big pot of popcorn and flavoring it. It's a simple delight. You can, we've made a syrup, we've done like cinnamon sugar, or we've done brewer's yeast and Parmesan cheese, or whatever. There's all these, just salt and butter, or nothing, or plain, and we can separate them all into little bowls and make each one a different flavor, and then bring them all together. And we have a little projector that's right on the outside of our Mamad wall, so kind of behind it, and we can sit and watch movies and be in a protected area and have all of our fun popcorns and hot cocos and teas, and it's really cozy, and just allowing. I think the most important thing is allowing for the time to talk together, because I'm not really a big fan of watching screens for the sake of watching screens. But being able to tell the kids to look out for different things, or point out actors that they've seen somewhere else, and say, oh, remember this guy, he was in the whatever thing that you saw, and what do you think about these two performances? Can you believe it's the same guy? Don't the wigs and costumes look different? He's wearing a wig, he's this and that. And starting to deconstruct things to get the critical mind working, so we're not just mindlessly watching, and then sitting together afterwards and deconstructing the performance. What made that a good performance? What made it a bad performance? What did we like about it? What did you think about the sets, the lighting, the costumes? Really breaking down the pieces so that the kids start seeing the world from an artistic perspective, instead of just like consumers of brain rot.
If we have time, I would add that, first of all, Rivkah, sometimes it's fun just to watch something. I have learned over the years, when my kids were younger, oh my gosh, it got to a point where sometimes they'd be like, can we just watch this, or can we watch it without you? So I realized I was being in homeschool mommy mode, like too diligently. So sometimes I just take a step back and I'm like, let's just laugh. Like I Love Lucy, something. Let's just laugh and have fun. Yeah, we have to kind of find a balance there, depending on our kids. My kids were like, Ema, no. But they're older now. So one of the things, like when you spoke about mushrooms, is even though you're indoors and close to the home and the mud, on the days you do get out, as the rains are coming, I'm sure you're seeing mushrooms. So this is ideal time for foraging. And that's a whole different category. I'm not saying get out and go forage your mushrooms. You really need to know your mushrooms before you forage, because it's not like some of the herbs where you might accidentally get lavender instead of rosemary or something, and it's okay. You know, mushrooms, you need to know your mushrooms. But the beauty of it is, and this even boys usually like, is seeing you make a tincture. And you can take, I mean, all I have here is a cup, but you can get little small, any jar, you know, repurpose a jar of pickles or buy a small, it doesn't need to be big. And you can make a mushroom tincture, which is what we did 2 weeks ago with locally foraged in South Florida, indigo milky cap mushrooms. And you just chop them up and pour alcohol over it. So then your boys might, especially if they're older, they might say, why are you pouring alcohol over? My boys know that we make tinctures, but they'll say, why are you using that alcohol? Can we use, I used 100 proof vodka, it's what I had. They'll be like, well, can we use whiskey? Yeah, why not? Maybe we want a higher alcohol percentage for the mushrooms. Did you know in 6 weeks' time, we're going to strain those mushrooms out and we're going to take that liquid and we're going to add a little bit of water and simmer it down. So essentially the end product is going to be a whole process that we can, you know, we can journal this, we can take photos. I have a video of making the tincture, and then we'll have another video afterwards. So it's the kind of thing that can be fun as well as educational, and is especially good at this time of year, you know, and it involves a bunch of different things that might interest the different age groups and the two genders, you know. So, yeah.
Before we go, I just wanted to mention basket weaving. It's not just a girl's thing, and it doesn't have to be anything special, fancy. You go out and collect some pine needles or whatever it is that you want to make and put them together. It gets them, you know, really into this thing. It can be small, it can be bigger, it can be whatever. It can be a big mess. It can be whatever. It's just fun. And in the end, you have something useful. But that one, for this time of year, to go out and one day collect the pine needles and just have them at home. And then whenever you are stuck in the house or whatever, you can pull them out and make a little basket. And it's actually quite simple, and it's really fun.
I like that.
Yeah, candle making too. We actually harvested olives from our tree, which was so cool. And Chava does this all the time, but it was my first time doing it. And we got a ton of olive oil from our one tree, which was amazing. And you can use those orange peels again. So you can actually take an orange peel and keep the pithy part that you kind of pull out of the orange, that kind of long part. If you can keep it attached or kind of pull it out so it's still attached to the peel and keep the bottom half of the peel, that pithy part can act as a wick. And if you pour some oil into that half, not shell, rind of an orange, you can actually just pour in some oil and light your wick, and you have a candle that way. If you've got bees like Chava, you have beeswax, and you can use that. You can purchase beeswax from a beekeeper and make your own candles, and that's kind of a fun thing to do. Oh, good. Yeah, April used an orange peel. It is fun and it smells really good. Just having those nice smells, and all of those things are aromatherapy. You know, they're all those winter smells and they smell so nice. The other thing that I wanted to mention was walkie-talkies. So this was, I don't know, this was like a genius accident situation that happened where my little girls, they have a friend who lives a few doors down, and they're so afraid to go and walk to their friend's house because there's, it has happened that they've gone outside and then there's a siren and they're little girls, and it's scary to know, like, do you head over to her house? Do you run back home? Like, what do you do? And I can't always go with them. So they just stopped going. But now with the walkie-talkies, one of them stays home and holds on the walkie-talkie. The other one will run over and they talk the whole time on the walkie-talkies, or they can trade off or they, whatever. And then they bring the friend over. And it just gives them, our walkie-talkies don't have a huge range, but a couple of houses we can do. And instead of giving cell phones or something like that to little kids, they've got these walkie-talkies and they're fun. And it also helps them get out. So they were having a lot of difficulty leaving the house, even for a short period of time. But once they had the walkie-talkies, all of a sudden, one was willing to go into the front yard and the other in the backyard so they could see if it works. And, and it got them out and got them back outside and into some fresh air, and very, very slowly. We're also trying to transition because the girls basically moved into the mamad for sleeping because it's just so frequent booms or sirens or really loud planes waking them up, and no one was getting proper sleep, and they felt more comfortable there. But this has gone on for months now, and they're not so comfortable, and the mamad's cold, and it's not exactly the healthiest place to be sleeping in the house. So we're starting a transition, but the transition kind of really freaked them out, which obviously we don't want to do. We want no freakouts, everything to be as calm and relaxed as possible. So when they were ready in a calm way, we're laying down with them in their beds, and they start the night in their beds. And then we still have a mattress set up for them in the mamad. And if they get up and hear planes or booms or anything like that, they just get up and go straight to the mamad and finish their night there. So they've also been able to come into our rooms whenever they want. But it's been interesting because since we've implemented this, I actually don't get my sleep disturbed. They just go straight to the mamad and they feel more comfortable there, even than coming to me in my bedroom. So it gets me a little extra sleep as well. Anything else? Any other important things we should know? We should share.
Just one thing that we kind of did by accident. We have lots and lots of instruments here. Each one wants to learn his thing, and then usually he gives it up and then moves on to the next thing. So we have guitars and a banjo and a drum set and whatever. You can take pots and pans, it doesn't matter, and start a little musical band. Each person takes something, a wooden spoon or, whatever it is, and sit down and just create music. Even if it sounds just absolutely horrible, it's still fun.
And distracting. I think the other thing we talked about is spinning wool, which you're doing. You can talk about maybe a little bit. And I just purchased a little crocheting kit. I don't know how to crochet, but I just got a little crocheting kit for my little ones so that they can start figuring it out together. And any of these kind of hand things that can happen, and then you have something useful. And in the end, you have a little scarf or you have a little toy. They're going to make little stuffy dolls with this crocheting kit. So, Chava, maybe you want to talk about the wool process and what you're doing there, or not. I think we lost Chava. I saw what she was doing. She's been shearing her sheep and she's carded her wool, and she has a bag just kind of sitting in her, special area of carded wool. And when the going gets tough, she just sits and starts spinning it. And so she was telling me how she's giving it to her boys to make projects with and
Wow.
kind of sew with it and weave it and do cool things with it. So, you don't have to have your own sheep, and you can also get wool. You can get carded wool. You can get wool yarn. Yeah.
Even fish. I think it's called fisherman. It's pretty basic. It's just and it will felt so easily, which is such a fun project with kids also, just to felt the wool. But just having the yarn is so inviting to adults and kids alike, even if they don't know how to crochet yet. And when they do, even just simple chain stitch, they can make a belt, they can just do a cord. There's so many things that can be done with yarn, and it feels good, so good. That connection to a natural yarn like wool is so amazing. And you can even use that for anything like macrame. You can do with your fingers. It there's just that so endless. You can just even give them the yarn. Today you can even show them tutorials on YouTube, but they'll figure stuff out. It's just amazing. How about you back? We were waiting for you.
I'm back. But yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. You don't have to know how to do it.
We're going to hear all about your process of wool.
I have a spinning wheel and whatever. I have the sheep and, everything else. So my process is totally different. But you can get your hands on some wool or whatever and yarn and just have fun. And even if you don't have the needles, there's hand knitting and hand crocheting, and you actually use your whole arm and your fingers to do the exact same stitches as you would with a needle. So yeah, again, YouTube. There's so much fun stuff out there, and it keeps the kids like engaged, and they're like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And then they try.
Amazing.
Great life skills for the rest of their lives. And just the ability to like, I'd really like a scarf. Oh, I can make it. We are, I guess, on the theme of sewing also, another thing that I've had the time for during this needing to stay near a safe room is the couches have holes. There's been holes that were torn in them. So coming with the kids and like, let's sew up these holes finally, and fix the stuffing and do whatever, kind of the home repairs. And the sewing, it didn't take that long. I mean, to fix all these holes, I probably did in like a half hour, 40 minutes, and kind of problem solving too, of like how to stitch up these holes when like it's a couch. So it's like attached to the back and it's like hard to get in there and hard to figure out the best way to close that up. So, just figuring things out from scratch. So hopefully, and making bagels. We didn't talk about that, but that'll go under bread. Making bagels is great because, especially if you're an American Jew, it's such an American Jewish thing to have. And I could never find them in Israel. Like in the big cities, they have them, but they don't in the middle of nowhere. So to my shock and disdain. But yeah, so for bagels, it's kind of a long process. So you have the dough and you let it rise and you shape it and you let it rise, and then you put the rings into boiling water and you boil it, and then you take it out and you put your toppings on and then you bake it. And so it takes up a lot of hours of the day. And it's really fun to compare and contrast, especially if you're baking other types of bread products, to kind of see, bagels are chewy and, the bread isn't. And how does boiling affect things? And just kind of asking the questions and then getting creative and figuring out, like, can you use any bread dough to make bagels? Like you really can. So those kind of things are really fun and a lost art. Many people don't know how to make their own bagels, how to crochet, how to fix the holes on their couch, how to do anything. Oh, my own incense with herbs. Madeline made it. That's really beautiful. Yeah, making your own incense is so good. Like my kids having incense during these times where there's so much stress. I started burning incense through some of these like siren heavy days. And the energy in the mamad just changed. I think it was Chava who had mentioned like, smudge, just get some dried sage and smudge in there. Incense smudging, like Gilla mentioned, aromatherapy. When my kids were really like, we were getting woken up in the night. If it wasn't a siren, it was a bomb, it was a boom, it was super loud planes. This is completely ridiculous to raise children like this and to live like this prolonged. So diffusing some lavender or rose or something like that, essential oils or even the herbs. It was amazing. It made such a difference for my kids, and they were able to kind of get a good night's sleep when I thought sleep was going to be hard to come by. And certainly I felt much better about it than, say, giving my kids a pharmaceutical drug to knock them out, which I wouldn't do anyway. But I'm just saying that is the alternative that many other parents are choosing because they're so desperate for sleep and for their kids to get a good night of sleep throughout this war. And this is totally non-invasive and good for your mind, body, and spirit, having yummy smells. So we can stop the recording here. Lowell, maybe you want to come in and then we'll stop the recording. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Yeah, so we want to thank Chava and Gilla and Rivkah for another illuminating, inspiring, and hope-giving seminar. We will reconvene in December in a few weeks. We wish you all shalom from the Lower Galilee, the Northern Negev, Florida, and Jerusalem. And we thank it's almost like panelists, not a studio audience, from various points around the world for joining us. And I guess I'd be repeating myself. I just say shalom again. So get practical, get busy, and ask Rivkah if you can come over one day for those chocolate chip cookies her son bakes. Mrs. Fields cookies, that's how it starts. You might be surprised. Okay.
My other son made a donut business for a while. He was making donuts at
That's
home
how
and
it
selling them.
starts. Colonel Kentucky Fried Chicken Colonel, what was his name? Colonel Saunders. He actually he started his career at the age of 66 when he was considering suicide, and the voice said, "Is there anything you can do before you kill yourself?" He said, "Well, I said to the voice, well, I make chickens." Well, he went home, started making chickens. And he really he got his friend, the governor, to make him an honorary colonel in the state militia because he didn't want to use a fake name. So he really was Colonel Saunders. And he played up the Gone with the Wind, Antebellum South, Beauregard, Mint Julep. He schmaltzed it to the hilt, and he was much beloved. Okay, shalom. So we